In this video, I will show you how to replace the riser blocks, adjuster screws, and the housing on your SR-3050 slab roller. This video covers the process whether you're replacing one part or all of them. The tools you will need are a 3mm Allen wrench, a 4mm Allen wrench, penetrating oil, or optionally a 3-in-1 oil that can clean, lubricate, and protect the metal surface, a slotted screwdriver for removing the chain, a 13mm wrench, a 17mm wrench, a 21mm wrench, a pin punch, a hammer. You may also need an adjustable wrench and a small piece of scrap wood. It is highly recommended that you use PPE such as gloves, ear protection, eye protection, and paper towels. This video shows a rebuild of a used SR-3050 slab roller. I will be overhauling an older, heavily used model. I will be replacing the riser blocks since there's too much movement between the adjuster screw's ball joint and the riser block socket. Since the adjuster screw also has too much play in the housing, I will be replacing the housings as well. Using a 4mm Allen wrench, remove the two set screws from each hand wheel. Ideally, both wheels should lift off easily. If not, spray some penetrating oil into the center shaft to loosen the bond. Using a 3mm Allen wrench, remove the screws from the left and right side of the chain guard. Repeat this for both the wagon wheel side as well as the gear side. Note that the underguard chain will drop once both screws are removed. Set it aside. Next, using the same 3mm Allen wrench, remove the two tension screws on the top side of the chain cover. Ideally, lifting the chain cover straight up will remove it. However, since the cover is pressed onto the shaft of the wagon wheel side, it may not come off this easily. I will demonstrate an alternative method to gently remove the cover should it get stuck. Place a piece of wood under the wagon wheel side edge of the chain cover and gently tap the wood upwards with a hammer. Make sure the wood only contacts the chain cover and doesn't press against the sprocket underneath. Ear protection is recommended for this step. Using a slotted or flathead screwdriver, lift the chain off and above the sprocket's teeth. Then carefully turn the chain or opposite side sprocket until the chain comes free. Using the 3mm Allen wrench, remove all 4 mounting screws from the gearbox cover, then set the cover aside. Remove the large gear, gear number 62, by securing the nut on the side of the gear housing with a 21mm wrench or a pair of pliers. Then loosen the mounting bolt with a second 21mm wrench or pair of pliers, or any tool you have available. Repeat this process for gear number 61 directly below, ultimately removing both gears and the brace plate behind it. Next, using a 13mm wrench, remove the bolt that holds the spacer strap from the top gear, gear number 60. To remove the last two gears, both gear number 60, locate the shear pin that holds its gear in place on each roller's axle. The pin will be found between the teeth of each gear. Once located, use a pin punch to tap the pin out of each gear. Ear protection is recommended for this step. After removing all the pieces and parts that make up the gear assembly, this is a good time to clean them from oil and accumulated clay dust and debris. Moving over to the wagon wheel side of the roller assembly, use the pin punch and hammer to remove the shear pin from the wagon wheel shaft. Staying on the wagon wheel side, use a 17mm wrench to remove the stabilizer bolts and slide off the housing. Remove the riser block. If you are only replacing the riser block, you do not need to remove the adjuster screw. In this video, I am replacing the adjuster screw as well as the housing from both sides. If you are replacing the adjuster screw, install it now. Insert the riser block, making sure the ball of the adjuster screw fits into the riser block's socket. Now reinsert the top and bottom roller axles back into the wagon wheel housing and riser block. Reinsert the stabilizer bolts to reassemble the housing in place. Get them hand tight at first, then tighten them fully with the 17mm wrench once they are both in. Reinsert the wagon wheel shear pin. Now move to the gear side. Repeat the process from the wagon wheel side using the 17mm wrench, removing the stabilizer bolts from the gear side housing. Using a 3mm Allen wrench, remove the thickness gauge indicator arrow. Separate the housing from the top and bottom roller. You may need to shimmy it back and forth to get it to slide away from the axles. Remove the adjuster screw if you're going to replace it. If not, keep it in. Now remove the riser block from the housing. In this case, it remained on the top roller axle. This too is a good time to clean off any grease, impacted clay, or other debris. Shimmy the riser block onto the axle until it is fully seated. You could also add it onto the housing as we did on the wagon wheel side. Here I'm inserting the new adjuster screw into the housing, but you may not have to depending on what you are replacing. Reattach the housing by sliding the axles back into the housing. Reinsert the stabilizer bolts to reassemble the housing. Tighten the bolts down first by hand, then fully tighten them once both bolts are in place using the 17mm wrench. Now that the body of the roller is reassembled, we can add the gears back on the housing. I'll link the manual in the comments below. It has a clear diagram that shows exactly where each part goes. Starting with the bottom gear bolt, add the 1.5mm thick nylon washer, then the small gear, number 61 from the manual, followed by the 1mm thin nylon washer. Then put on the brace plate. Note the orientation of the brace plate, where the curved corner will be closest to the top roller to the right. Then insert the assembly through the bottom hole on the housing. On the opposite side of the housing, add the large metal fender washer, followed by a 1.5mm thick nylon washer, followed by the lock nut. To pre-assemble the top gear, the arrangement will be slightly different. Starting with the top gear bolt, add the 1.5 thick nylon washer. Add the spacer strap, followed by a 1mm thin nylon washer, then the large gear number 62 if you're going by the manual, and lastly a 1mm thin nylon washer. Insert this assembly through the top hole of the brace plate, then through the top hole on the housing. On the opposite side of the housing, add the large metal fender washer, followed by a 1.5mm thick nylon washer, followed by the lock nut. Now we are going to assemble gear number 60 on the top and bottom roller axles. First pull back the top gear number 62 so you have clearance to insert the gear. Align the hole on gear number 60 and push the gear onto the axle. Making sure to have on ear protection, tap the gear on with the hammer until both holes align. Now pivot the spacer strap so gear number 62 marries with gear number 60. Replace both the washer and the 13mm bolt, tightening the bolt down until it is snug using the 13mm wrench. Take the bottom gear number 60 and align the hole of the bottom axle with the hole on gear number 60. Push the gear on, hammer if needed. Now take a pin punch that's just a bit bigger than the shear pin. Set the shear pin to the hole of the gear. Line up the pin punch with the pin, then give it several solid taps with a hammer until it cannot go down any further. Then switch to a smaller pin punch to finish driving the pin down into the hole. Give it a test by spinning the top roller to confirm all the gears are moving in concert. To do the bottom gear, I'm going to flip the unit for a more comfortable angle. Then it's the same process as before. Line up the larger pin punch with the replacement pin and tap it with a hammer. Then switch to the smaller pin punch to drive it down into the hole. Moving on to the sprocket. If you need to change your sprocket, you will first loosen the two set screws using a 4mm Allen wrench. You can add a few drops of penetrating oil if the sprocket doesn't come off the adjuster screw easily. Using a hammer and ear protection, remove the sprocket from the adjuster screw. In the sprocket I'm replacing, you can see that many of the teeth are worn and some are even bent. This caused the chain to ride roughly. Repeat this process for the other side. Next, install the sprocket onto the adjuster screw on the gear side. Use a 4mm Allen wrench to tighten both set screws securely. These are what hold the chain's tension, so make sure they're tightened down well. Now add the washer. This is what the tension screws will screw onto. Now move to the wagon wheel side. Repeat this process. Install the sprocket onto the adjuster screw using a 4mm Allen wrench. Note, there is no washer on this side. Finally, check the height of both sides. Adjust by raising or lowering one side until they match evenly. In this case, I will bring both ends down until the top roller hits the bottom roller on both sides. Now let's replace the chain. First loop the chain around the gear side sprocket. Then move to the wagon wheel side and set as much of the chain into the teeth of the sprocket as you can. For safety, I will use a screwdriver to assist me in feeding the chain onto the sprocket by prying the chain into the teeth of the sprocket. I temporarily install the hang crank on the gear side to assist me in feeding the chain properly onto the wagon wheel side sprocket. Since my roller is in the lowest position, I need to turn the chain counterclockwise for the roller to move up. Be sure your hands are not by the sprocket or the chain as you turn the hang crank. Failure to remove your hands away may result in injury. Turn the hang crank until the chain seats itself into place. Once the chain is seated and tight, remove the hand wheel so the chain guard can be replaced. Replace the chain guard. Then replace the underguard chain covers and tighten them back with the panhead screws and the 3mm Allen wrench. Next, you'll want to line up the holes from the sprocket washer with the slots on the chain guard. I'm using an Allen wrench to pivot the washer. Chain tension is created when the stem of the adjuster screw is moved away from the adjuster screw on the other side. You can see this as I pull the chain guard. First, I'll insert the panhead screws in place but not tighten them down. Again, pulling back on the chain guard pulls the chain taut. To hold the tautness, push back the chain guard towards the stem of the adjuster screw. Holding the stem and the guard in place, tighten down the panhead screws. Now that the chain has full tension, replace the hand wheels on the stems of the adjuster screws. Be sure one of the two set screws aligns with the flat part of the adjuster shaft. Repeat this for the other side. Next, we need to replace the thickness indicator. Start by feeding the back end of the thickness indicator onto the roller axle between the top roller and the gear side housing. It is best to have your rollers close together so you can place the indicator at the 0 mark. From the gear side, replace the flat washer onto the set screw. Then screw it onto the thickness indicator. Tighten it down using the 3mm Allen wrench. Test that the indicator moves accordingly with the roller adjustment. Now take the gearbox cover and place it back onto the housing. In this case, I left the mounting screws on, so be sure the set screw and the washer affix the cover onto the housing.